The galaxy had long forgotten Earth. It was a backwater world, quarantined centuries ago by the Galactic Concord under the pretense of self-destructive tendencies. Humanity had been left alone to burn itself out, an old relic of a failed species. At least, that was the official story. But stories have a way of being rewritten. Captain Valex of the Valery Trade Coalition never gave Earth much thought. He was a Xeno like any other, tall, lean, and adorned in the ceremonial markings of his people. To him, Earth was nothing more than a red-marked coordinate on star charts, an abandoned system whispered about in drunken bar talk. The Galactic Concord claimed the planet had collapsed in on itself centuries ago, lost to war, famine, and internal decay. Yet here he was, staring at something impossible. His ship, the Starbound Voyager, had been tracking unusual energy fluctuations in the Sol system, a routine job meant to ensure trade lanes remained undisturbed. But as his scanners swept Earth, they registered readings that shouldn't exist. Massive power signatures. Orbital shipyards. Defensive platforms. Communications traffic buzzing like a hive. Are you seeing this? Valex murmured, his hand tightening on the command console. His second-in-command, a feline like Zanari named Relka, flicked her ears in confusion. This doesn't make sense. Earth is supposed to be dead. But it wasn't. The hollow display before them showed a thriving planet. Megacities stretched across continents, glimmering with advanced infrastructure. Space elevators pierced the clouds, ferrying goods and personnel to low orbit. Above the planet, starships unlike anything in the known galaxy drifted in formation, sleek, efficient, and bristling with weaponry that made Valex's skin crawl. This is a violation of Concord law, Relka whispered. They should be primitive. They should be gone. Yet here they were, stronger than ever. Valex's mind raced. The Galactic Concord had lied. The question was, why? A sudden proximity alert blared across the bridge. Every crew member stiffened as the main display lit up with an approaching vessel. It moved fast, far too fast for anything the Concord claimed humanity should be capable of. A sleek, angular warship locked onto them, its hull adorned with a symbol Valex had never seen before, a stylized eagle with spread wings, gripping a planet in its talons. Then came the message. The voice that filled the bridge was distinctly human, deep and calm. Unidentified vessel, this is the UEN Indomitable of the United Earth Navy. You have trespassed into restricted Terran space. Identify yourselves immediately or be fired upon. The weight of those words sent a chill through Valex's body. United Earth Navy? Humanity was supposed to be extinct, or at the very least, fractured and weak. But this was something else. This was an empire. He hesitated for a split second before activating the comms. This is Captain Valex of the Valery Trade Coalition. We are here on a routine scan of energy signatures. We did not intend to trespass. A pause. Then, the human voice returned. Understood, Captain. You will follow our escort to Earth's primary orbital station for questioning. Any deviation from your flight path will be considered an act of hostility. The comms cut off. A pair of smaller, dagger-like escort ships flanked the Starbound Voyager, their silent presence an unspoken warning. Relka exhaled sharply. Well, we're in it now. Valex merely nodded, his mind spinning. The Galactic Concord had hidden Earth's resurgence. If the humans had managed to rise from their supposed ruin, what else had they accomplished in the shadows? As the massive blue-green planet loomed ever closer, Valex realized one undeniable truth. The era of the Concord was over. A new power had awakened. And the galaxy was about to change forever. As the Starbound Voyager drifted closer to Earth's primary orbital station, Captain Valex struggled to process the reality unfolding before him. The last recorded images of Earth in the Valery archives depicted a fractured world, war-torn, polluted, and spiraling into collapse. What he saw now was the complete opposite. The station they approached was a behemoth of metal and ingenuity, larger than any known Concord installation. Its hull gleamed under the light of Sol, reinforced with alloy plating his scanners couldn't identify. Dozens of ships moved in synchronized precision, frigates, carriers, and massive dreadnoughts that eclipsed his own vessel in both size and firepower. This station alone could rival a Concord armada, Relka muttered, her feline eyes wide with disbelief. A docking corridor extended toward their ship, locking into place with a precision that spoke of advanced engineering. The comms crackled to life once more. Captain Valex, power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. There was no use in arguing. Valex knew when he was outmatched. With a resigned nod to his crew, he issued the order to comply. Moments later, the airlock hissed open, and a squad of armored human soldiers stepped aboard. Their uniforms bore the insignia of the United Earth Navy, and their presence radiated discipline. Unlike the chaotic mercenary forces of the outer sectors, these soldiers moved with precision, their rail rifles held steady but not raised. They weren't just trained, they were professionals. A single figure stepped forward. His face was aged but sharp, his expression unreadable. His uniform was different from the others, more ornate, marked by golden stripes along the sleeves. I am Admiral Elias Carter, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Navy. His voice was firm but measured. You will follow me. Valex exchanged glances with Relka before nodding. There was no choice. As they stepped onto the station, they were met with a sight even more astonishing. The interior was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, sleek corridors lined with advanced technology, holographic displays showcasing fleet movements, and personnel moving in coordinated efficiency. This was no rogue faction. This was an empire in its prime. The group was led into a conference chamber where a massive holodisplay flickered to life. It showed a star map, one that included every known galactic power, but with a notable difference. The Galactic Concord's territories were marked in blue. Earth's sphere of influence, however, was expanding outward in deep red. Admiral Carter gestured toward the display. I imagine you have questions. Valex exhaled slowly. Many. But let's start with the most obvious one. He locked eyes with the Admiral. How? A flicker of amusement crossed Carter's face. The Concorde abandoned us, believing we would destroy ourselves. They underestimated us. He folded his arms behind his back. They thought isolation would break us. Instead, it united us. Forced us to advance. To adapt. Relka's tail twitched. But the energy readings, this level of technology, none of this should be possible in just a few centuries. Carter's expression darkened. The Concorde did more than isolate us. They sabotaged us. Stalled our progress. Planted operatives to keep us in the Dark Ages. But we found them. And once we did, he let the words hang. Valex felt a chill. You purged them. Carter nodded. And once we were free of their manipulation, humanity's true potential was unleashed. Valex studied the map again, the weight of realization settling over him. Earth wasn't just rebuilding, it was expanding. And if this was just the beginning, the balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift. Valex leaned forward, his eyes locked on the expanding red zones on the galactic map. If this was accurate, humanity wasn't just reclaiming their home system, they were spreading, systematically and with purpose. But there was something else that nagged at him. How far have you expanded? He asked, his voice measured. Admiral Carter didn't immediately answer. Instead, he tapped a command into the holodisplay. The red sphere surrounding Earth flickered and grew, revealing entire sectors now marked as United Earth territory. Valex stiffened. That's Concorde space. It was Concorde space, Carter corrected. Now, it belongs to us. Relka's fur bristled. That's impossible. No species, no single faction, could take Concorde territory without sparking a full-scale war. Carter smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You assume the Concorde is as strong as it once was. He gestured at the map again. The truth is, the Galactic Concorde is a rotting corpse. A bloated bureaucracy strangled by its own corruption. They control vast territories, yes, but their fleets? Scattered. Their leadership? Paralyzed by infighting. Their military? Stretched thin, suppressing rebellions and uprisings across 1,000 worlds. Valex exchanged a glance with Relka. This was, possible, the Valori Trade Coalition operated on the outskirts of Concorde authority, and even they had heard whispers of increasing instability. The idea that the Concorde was vulnerable wasn't absurd, but that Earth had been the one to take advantage of it? You didn't just advance in technology, Valex realized aloud. You prepared for war. Carter nodded. And we've been winning. Valex exhaled slowly. The implications were staggering. Relka, however, still had questions. But why now? If the Concorde has been weak for decades, why make your move only recently? Carter's expression hardened. Because we didn't know the full extent of what they did to us until recently. The holodisplay shifted again, now showing a different image, a derelict space station orbiting a dead world. The markings were old, but unmistakable, Concorde design. We discovered this facility on the edge of the Scylla Nebula 2 years ago, Carter explained. It was hidden behind layers of stealth fields and gravitational distortions, meant to be forgotten. He exhaled sharply. It was a research station, dedicated to us. Valex narrowed his eyes. What kind of research? Carter's gaze was ice. Containment. Suppression. They weren't just monitoring us. They were actively sabotaging every major scientific breakthrough humanity made. Technologies that could have propelled us to the stars centuries ago were buried, stolen, or destroyed. They infiltrated our governments, manipulated our wars, controlled our access to knowledge. Relka's tail twitched in disbelief. That level of interference, it would require entire generations of operatives. Why would they go that far? Carter's voice was calm, but the fury beneath it was unmistakable. Because they were afraid of us. Silence hung heavy in the chamber. Valex swallowed. And now? Carter's expression didn't change. Now, we're done being shackled. The Concorde thought they could decide our fate. His voice turned steely. They were wrong. Valex sat back, processing everything. He had come here believing Earth was a forgotten ruin, a ghost of a civilization that had burned itself out. Instead, he had found a rising power, more advanced and more determined than anyone could have imagined. And that changed everything. As he stared at the galactic map, one thought solidified in his mind. The age of the Concorde was ending. And humanity was here to take its place. Captain Valex sat in tense silence, his mind racing. The truth was undeniable, humanity had not only survived but had risen in secret, preparing for a war the rest of the galaxy didn't even know was coming. And the war had already begun. Admiral Carter tapped the holodisplay again, shifting the map's focus to a system on the fringes of Concorde space, **Dranith, for ***. This was a Concorde stronghold, Carter said. 2 months ago, it became ours. The holo image zoomed in, revealing the remnants of a battle. Massive Concorde warships lay shattered in orbit, their once mighty forms reduced to burning debris. Human vessels patrolled the system now, their formations tight and their weapons ready. Valex clenched his jaw. He recognized the name. Dranith, for was a major Concorde supply depot, a hub for military logistics. Losing it should have sparked an immediate retaliation. But there had been no reports, no rumors of such a battle. How? He asked, his voice measured. Carter smiled, but there was no humor in it. We took them before they knew what hit them. The display shifted again, showing a playback of the battle. But it wasn't a battle, it was an execution. The Concorde fleet had been caught entirely off guard. Human warships exited FTL with pinpoint precision, striking with weapons Valex had never seen before. Concord shields, once considered the gold standard of defense, failed almost instantly against focused kinetic bombardments and energy weapons that cut through their hulls like paper. Valax watched in growing horror as the Concord forces struggled to react. Their formations crumbled. Their command structure collapsed. Within hours, the battle was over. Relka's tail flicked with agitation. This shouldn't be possible. Carter turned to her. The Concord has relied on stagnation for centuries. Their fleets are built on outdated doctrines, their weapons designed to keep lesser species in line. His gaze hardened. We are not a lesser species. Valax took a deep breath. You're escalating. The Concord won't sit idle after this. Carter folded his arms. They already have. That made Valax pause. What? Carter nodded toward the map. 2 months. That's how long it's been since we took Drannith 4. And in those 2 months, the Concord has done nothing. Relka's ears twitched. That's not possible. A strike on a military depot like this should have provoked an immediate response. Unless, Valax said slowly, they can't respond. Carter smiled thinly. Now you're getting it. He gestured to the display again, pulling up intelligence reports. We've intercepted Concord communications. They're in chaos. Their high command is paralyzed, half of them refuse to believe what happened, the other half are scrambling to cover it up. They're afraid that if word spreads about Drannith 4, it'll trigger uprisings across their empire. Relka exhaled sharply. And will it? Carter's expression darkened. It already has. The holomap updated again, highlighting multiple sectors with flashing red markers. Concord colonies, trade hubs, and even military outposts were seeing unrest, protests, riots, even armed resistance. The cracks in their empire were growing, and Earth was hammering them wider. Valax exhaled. So this is it, then. He turned to Carter. You're not just fighting for survival. You're going to replace the Concord. Carter met his gaze without hesitation. We're not just here to win a war, Captain. He stepped closer, his voice firm, unyielding. We're here to take our place at the head of the galaxy. Valax glanced at the burning wreckage of the Concord fleet on the display, then at the growing red borders of Earth's influence. The old order was dying. And humanity wasn't waiting for permission to rise. Valax stared at the galactic map, the weight of reality pressing down on him. Earth wasn't just taking territory, they were dismantling the very foundations of the Galactic Concord, piece by piece. And the terrifying part? They were winning. Relka shifted uncomfortably beside him, her feline features tight with unease. This isn't just another uprising, she muttered. This is a coup against the entire order of the galaxy. Admiral Carter leaned forward. It's a correction. Valax exhaled slowly. You speak as if the Concord is already dead. Carter's expression was unreadable. Because it is. The only question is how long it will take to collapse completely, and whether you and your people will be on the right side of history when it does. Valax's jaw tightened. You're asking me to betray the Concord. Carter shook his head. I'm asking you to see the truth. The Concord isn't some noble guardian of peace, it's a rotting empire, built on suppression and stagnation. They chose to abandon Earth, to keep us weak, because they feared what would happen if we became their equal. His gaze sharpened. They were right to be afraid. Relka flicked her tail. And what, exactly, do you want from us? Carter clasped his hands behind his back. The Valori Trade Coalition sits on the border of Concord space, a neutral entity, officially. But you and I both know your people have no love for Concord rule. Valax narrowed his eyes. What are you suggesting? Carter's lips curled into the ghost of a smile. A partnership. Silence filled the room. Valax considered the offer carefully. The Valori had survived by playing both sides, keeping their independence while benefiting from Concord trade. But that delicate balance was shattering. If the Concord fell, neutrality wouldn't be an option anymore. And Earth. Earth wasn't just asking for support. They were offering something far more dangerous: opportunity. Relka crossed her arms. What if we refuse? Carter's smile didn't falter. Then you'll leave this station alive, unharmed. We don't force alliances. His expression darkened slightly. But the time will come when the Concord will demand your loyalty. And when that happens, you'll have to make a choice: fight for them, or against them. Valek inhaled deeply. He had spent his life navigating political tides, but this was something else entirely. He wasn't being asked to pick a side in a simple skirmish, he was being asked to bet on the future of the galaxy. And Earth was giving him a front-row seat to history in the making. After a long pause, he finally spoke. I need to contact my people. Carter nodded. Of course. Take your time. He stepped back, folding his arms. But not too much time. The tide is turning, Captain. Choose wisely. Valek said nothing, but as he turned away, his mind was already made up. The old order was crumbling. And he refused to sink with it. Captain Valek sat in the dimly lit chamber aboard the United Earth Navy's orbital station, staring at the secure comms terminal in front of him. He had sent the message to the Valerie High Council hours ago, an encrypted transmission detailing everything he had seen. Earth's resurgence. Their technology. The fall of Draneth 4. The inevitable collapse of the Concord. Now, he waited for their response. The screen flickered, and an elder Valerie's face appeared, High Chancellor Orlees, his dark-furred visage lined with age and wisdom. Captain Valek, Orlees said, his voice steady but grim. Your report is alarming. Valek leaned forward. And? The High Chancellor exhaled. The Council is divided. Some believe we should remain neutral, wait and see who prevails. Others, he hesitated, agree with your assessment. That Earth's rise is inevitable. Valek didn't like the hesitancy in his voice. And you? What do you believe, Chancellor? Orlees studied him for a long moment. I believe in survival, Captain. He glanced away briefly before speaking again. You should know, the Concord is moving. Valek's eyes narrowed. Moving how? We received intelligence an hour ago. A Concord fleet has been mobilized toward Draneth 4. Not just a response force, an armada. Orlees's expression darkened. They intend to retake the system at all costs. Valek's blood ran cold. How large? Estimates suggest over 100 warships. 4 dreadnoughts leading the charge. Relka swore under her breath. Even at its weakest, the Concord still had sheer numbers on its side. Valek turned to Carter, who had been silently observing the conversation. You were right. They can't ignore this any longer. Carter nodded, his expression unreadable. The moment we took Draneth 4, they had 2 options: respond with overwhelming force, or admit they've lost control. They chose war. He turned toward the holodisplay, tapping a command. A real-time tactical map appeared, showing the incoming Concord fleet. This will be their test of us. They believe if they hit us hard enough, we'll break. Relka exhaled sharply. Will you? Carter smiled coldly. No. Valek studied the map, calculating. If they're bringing that many ships, you will be outnumbered. Carter clasped his hands behind his back. We've been preparing for this moment for years. Their tactics are predictable. Their formations haven't changed in centuries. We, on the other hand, have changed. His voice hardened. We don't fight like they expect. Orlees cleared his throat. And if you lose? Carter turned to him. We won't. The Valerie Chancellor hesitated, then finally spoke. The Council will not formally commit to war against the Concord. Valek felt his stomach tighten. So we do nothing? Orleans shook his head. Nothing. He leaned in, voice quieter. We will send independent Valerie ships to observe the battle. They may assist if necessary. But officially, we remain neutral. Valex understood the meaning. The Council wouldn't risk outright defiance, not yet. But they were willing to bet on humanity. I'll be staying, Valex said firmly. I need to see this battle firsthand. Orleans gave him a long look before nodding. Then may fortune favor you, Captain. The transmission ended. Carter turned to Valex, his expression unreadable. You understand what's about to happen? Valex nodded. The Concord believes they can crush you. Carter's smile was razor-sharp. Let's prove them wrong. Outside the station, the United Earth Navy began to mobilize. Warships surged into formation, their engines burning bright. Weapons powered up. Defense grids locked into place. The battle for the galaxy's future had begun. The vastness of space above Dranith 4 was no longer silent. The Concord Armada arrived in a thunderous wave, warping into the system with the precision and discipline of an empire that had ruled for millennia. Over 100 warships, 4 colossal dreadnoughts, dozens of cruisers, and swarms of smaller corvettes, formed an iron wall, ready to reclaim what had been taken. But Earth was waiting. On the planet's dark side, hidden from view, the United Earth Navy was already in motion. A fleet of sleek, angular vessels surged forward, their formations tight, their weapons primed. They numbered less than half of the Concord's forces, but Valex could see it now. Carter hadn't been lying. The Concord was bringing numbers. Earth was bringing superiority. Valex and Relka watched from the bridge of the starborn Voyager, positioned on the outer rim of the battlefield. They had insisted on staying, on witnessing history. Admiral Carter's voice came through the command channels, calm and unshaken. All ships, execute Sagittarius Protocol. The humans struck first. The United Earth Navy didn't engage like the Concord expected. Instead of lining up for traditional fleet engagements, they split into smaller squadrons, weaving through enemy formations at impossible speeds. Their ships moved like predators, exploiting gaps in the enemy's defenses before they could even react. Then came the weapons. Valex had seen plenty of combat, but nothing like this. Concord shields flickered and collapsed under kinetic rounds traveling at near-relativistic speeds. Their hulls, built to withstand energy weapons, crumpled like paper under hyperdense slugs. Where the Concord fired plasma and lasers in slow, predictable patterns, Earth's ships delivered pinpoint railgun strikes, tearing through command centers and critical subsystems with ruthless efficiency. The first Concord dreadnought, **TCS Indomitable ***, took a concentrated barrage of tungsten slugs to its reactor core. It detonated in a violent inferno, taking 3 escort cruisers with it. Panic spread through the Concord fleet. Valex could hear the intercepted transmissions, the disbelief in their voices. Impossible. Their weapons, our shields. Break formation. We need to regroup, no. Hold the line. Hold, But there was no line to hold. Earth's forces weren't fighting for attrition. They were executing a decapitation strike. Their AI-assisted targeting systems identified key command ships and eliminated them within the first 15 minutes. The Concord, relying on rigid, centralized leadership, collapsed into chaos. Relka exhaled in shock. They're winning. Valex watched as another Concord dreadnought, TCS Resolute, lost engine control and drifted helplessly before a coordinated missile barrage reduced it to burning wreckage. The United Earth Navy didn't let up. They didn't stop to gloat. They pressed forward, relentless, calculating. It was a massacre. By the time the last Concord dreadnought fell, the remaining ships were in full retreat. The once mighty armada had been shattered. The Galactic Concord, the empire that had ruled the stars for millennia, had lost its first true war. On the bridge of his flagship, Carter stood motionless, watching as the remnants of the Concord forces fled. "This is it," Vallex whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "This is how it begins." Carter turned to him, his expression unreadable. "No, Captain." He turned back toward the viewport, where the wreckage of the old order drifted in silence. "This is how it ends." The transmission was sent. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Concord's invincibility had been a lie. And humanity? Humanity had arrived.